So we're going to watch this video by Legendary Drops, and it's about Destiny 2. And I'm a big fan of Destiny 2. I used to play a lot of Destiny 2. And I'm really kind of sad with the state of Destiny 2 and everything that's like happened in Destiny 2. So let's go ahead and check out this video. We'll hang out. We'll talk about it together. And we'll see what Legendary Drops has to say, chap.
Hurts. Today we are performing an autopsy on Bungie, one of the most prolific game studios in the entire games industry, one that was largely responsible for popularizing online gaming for casual audiences. Hell, these guys...
Thank you for... Oh, thank you for the lizard. All right, let's see what he's got to say here, man. It is really sad what happened to Destiny and Bungie,
These
though.
were the ones that brought gaming into the mainstream, and as they rose to the highest of heights, they become nothing more than a cautionary tale of greed and mismanagement. This is the same studio that gave us Halo, that built Destiny, that at one point represented the future of the games industry. Yet here we are now, watching them collapse under the weight of their own arrogance, incompetence, endless layoffs, and a community that no longer wants to defend them.
I think that, like, to talk about this a little bit, especially if you guys have been around for a long time, like, so Destiny did have a good community at one point in time, and I love to be a part of it, but over time, Destiny's community just kind of devolved into an absolute shit show. And a lot of people, even long-term friends of mine, just don't enjoy being a member of Destiny's community, and it became like this toxic cesspool, and I don't want to see that happen in other games that we love.
Greed and mismanagement. This is the same studio that gave us Halo, that built Destiny, that at one point
also I went backwards too far,
of the games industry. Yet here we are now, watching them collapse under the weight of their own arrogance, incompetence, endless
brain spin after work,
a community that no longer wants to defend them.
So's mine.
They went from making some of the most recognized and beloved games in the industry to now being under threat of having their studio taken away and then folded into PlayStation. I don't think that there is a better example of a studio that has wasted its own...
Honestly, them folding the studio into PlayStation, I don't know how I feel about that, because PlayStation hasn't really, like, PlayStation, Sony hasn't had a good track record of releases, so...
Potential, its own talent, its own games, while also simultaneously betraying their audience at every given turn. Cutting content, paywalling things, obfuscation of currencies, stealing fan art. How do you fall that far? How do you fall that hard? How do you go from defining the industry to be...
There was a time where dungeons were free, and then they made dungeon keys. Like, they did so many things to paywall their game. It was stupid.
Everything that we hate about it. Well,
it was so
that's
bad.
What we're going to find out. Big thanks to Starford Systems for supporting the channel and sponsoring today's video.
Hey, you got one of those, Rusty.
Powerful custom PCs out there, hand-assembled, stress-tested, and built to last. Whether you want
got one of these coming, right?
Ready to go, or a full custom build, check out Starford Systems and use my link in the description below. Bungie is at its lowest point in history. Destiny 2 has collapsed to its weakest player count in years since the release of The Edge of Fate just a couple of months ago. The game is...
Destiny 2's player count is not looking good, chat.
Bled out most of its audience. It's now barely reaching 25,000 players on Steam, which is a loss of more than 90% of the players that they had at the game's peak with Lightfall. Their next project, the Extraction Shooter Marathon, was revealed this last spring to little more than criticism and controversy, especially after it came out that they had lifted art assets from an indie creator. Ultimately, that...
Honestly, when it came to like the Bungie art fiasco, I know it was kind of a big deal, and I've talked about this before like numerous times. I don't think anybody cares about the art realistically. I think that everybody is just jumping on the art thing because they can, because Bungie and Marathon was like so bad. And I think that if like Marathon would have came out and been like really, really good, then nobody would have cared about the art. They would have been like, oh yeah, it was just like one individual, like blah, blah, blah. This isn't a big deal. But because everything else was bad, it just compounded and people like just dogpiled on it.
That entire fiasco forced PlayStation to suspend the release of the game indefinitely. So now with Marathon...
Shows the effort they're putting in though. No, I mean, it does though. Like, honestly, it shows like it is definitely a problem. But it's just like one of many problems that Bungie has had and that Marathon's had.
In limbo, Destiny 2 spiraling, and CEO Pete Parsons stepping down, Sony has already begun stripping away Bungie's independence and preparing to fold them deeper into PlayStation.
They need to.
Rewind the clock 10 or 20 years ago.
They need to, honestly.
Greatest studios in the industry. They were untouchable, and nobody could have ever predicted that this is where Bungie would end up. But
I hate to say it, but they just need to fold them in. We talked about it earlier. They need to fold these guys into PlayStation and then release Destiny 3.
here we are, which means that we have to answer the question how, and to be able to understand that, we need to go back to where it all started.
Yeah, the original Marathon, the original look on Marathon wasn't that bad until they like sanitized it and did all the weird shit.
Like so many legendary studios, Bungie's story begins really normally, to be honest with you. In the early 90s, Jason Jones and Alex Seropian had met in college in Chicago, and they bonded over a love of games, and they wanted to build games of their own.
Bro, this is basically the story of every studio that was successful. Like, you could copy paste this into like any other game studio that was like successful back in the day, and it was the exact same story.
Cut their teeth on making titles for the Mac, beginning with a game called Nope, a Pong clone that was made before they even created the studio, and then they followed that up with Operation Desert Storm.
You don't see Sony making a good live service game. They have a bad history. I mean, nobody has a good history of making live service games, let's be honest. I'm not saying Sony's like the best one to do it, but obviously you can't leave Bungie the way it is. If you leave Bungie the way it is, it's fucked.
A dungeon crawler called Minotaur: The Labyrinths of Crete, and then they made their first real FPS game, Pathways to Darkness. But it wasn't until the release of Marathon that Bungie truly had made a name for itself. Marathon was unlike anything that Bungie had built before. Its strange, compelling brand of sci-fi pulled players in, and its vertical level design pushed the experience forward. But what really mattered here was that it came out for Mac, because at the time, shooters and big-budget games really just lived on PC or consoles, leaving Mac players starved for options. Bungie filled that void, but in doing so, they ended up building a loyal following that saw their games as proof that Mac gaming could stand alongside the rest. The success of Marathon, followed by Marathon 2 and Marathon Infinity, cemented Bungie as a cornerstone of Mac gaming and gave them their first taste of real mainstream recognition.
So to like that point though, that's basically what they did with Bungie. Or that's basically what they did with Destiny. And Destiny was an attempt to bring the MMO experience to console players that have never had it. And I think that was one of the main reasons why Destiny was so successful. So, you know, based on this, Bungie had a track record of going places where other people neglected it and turning it into a success, right?
Following the success of Marathon, Bungie tried their hand at publishing a few smaller titles while quietly developing their next big project. And in 1997, they released Myth: The Fallen Lords in RTS, and it became their fastest-selling game to date.
Interesting.
I
Never
think the
heard
reason
of
why
it.
Bungie was so successful at this point comes down to what
Never
they
heard of
themselves
this.
described in an IGN documentary. They were young, stupid, idealistic, and above all, ambitious. They weren't just running a corporation. They were a group of friends that were making games that they wanted to play. If you go back and you watch some of the footage...
Hey, imagine making games that you want to play and being successful. Like, that is just an unheard of thing in today's modern gaming. It's interesting that it used to work, though. Do you know what I mean? A dev team that thinks that aim assist as a stat on an item is something players want in FPS is cooked anyway. It's like fundamentally not understanding why some people play FPS. Dude, Synity, everything that's happened recently in like FPSs and aim assist and trying to combat fucking like controllers and all of this, there's definitely a level of developers losing the forest for the trees that has been happening here recently. And it feels so bad because we can all see it, but yet they keep doing it, right? Like, how many times can you just fuck up?
Footage of their earlier days, you can see it plain as day. None of these guys were shooting any of these videos with the intention of it being in a documentary. No, they were just running around with camcorders because that's what everybody else did at the time. The office was full of pranks, jokes, and chaos, but underneath it all was a philosophy that drove everything that they had made. They were their own customers.
What's going on, Ranrock?
I think it all starts with the idea that we were our own customer and that anybody else who was going to play our games, you know, we were in their shoes.
And the spirit of that...
Imagine thinking about your player base as people just like you and making a game that you yourself would play. Such a foreign concept.
Was tested almost immediately because when Bungie released Myth 2, it shipped with a critical issue where the installer was wiping players' hard drives with no patches or day one updates to be able to save them. Bungie then had to recall nearly 500,000 copies and replace them at their own expense. It cost the company millions of dollars and nearly sank the studio, but it showed exactly what kind of company they were. Oh my, how times have changed. That was Bungie when they first started. They were their own customer. They were making games for themselves. And I think when you look at their early success, that makes a lot of sense. I think that you have to be selfish in the games industry.
I don't think you have to be selfish. I think that was just an interesting word choice. And I don't think that LD is wrong here, but I don't think it's about being selfish so much as just understanding what you're wanting and understanding what your audience is and building a game for your audience.
I mean, you have a ragtag group of nerds and geeks that like sci-fi and fantasy games, and that's what they were trying to make for themselves. They weren't thinking about what anybody else wanted them to make.
Absolutely.
They just wanted to make the games that they themselves wanted to play.
Yeah, because they're not the only people in the world. There's probably a ton of people that look and think just like you. And you should make games for the people that you understand instead of trying to make games that cater to everybody. Because if you make games that cater to everybody, absolutely nobody will play them.
We were our own customer. We were in their shoes.
Absolutely.
That line seems to come up almost every single time I ever talk about either successful developers or ones that are failing. Because at the end of the day, I think that that's where success in this industry starts and stops. If you do not understand the perspective of your customers, if you cannot feel what they feel, then how are you supposed to provide anything of value to them?
Exactly.
After the financial disaster of It 2, Bungie doubled down on
he's just based though. Like it's absolutely what it is.
Next project, Halo, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just the financial pressure of these guys almost going under. Maybe they just had the right people at the right time, but their talent went through the roof. Marcus Leto leveled up in art direction. Joseph Staten stepped in as a writer and cinematic lead.
Halo was
Chris
so
Butcher
good
drove the
though for
engineering.
what it
Chris Barrett
was.
refined the visuals. In just a few years, this scrappy Mac studio that was making quirky RTS games and dungeon crawlers was suddenly building something unrecognizable. It jumped so big that honestly, I just don't understand it. Halo debuted at Macworld with none other than Steve Jobs introducing it, and for the reveal trailer, Bungie had brought back Marty O'Donnell, who had scored Myth 2, and they only gave this guy a vague description of a mythical ancient alien world, and what he would then deliver for that trailer is now the most iconic theme in all of gaming, the Halo theme.
Chat, that is literally giving me goosebumps hearing the Halo theme. It is that iconic, man. Just hearing it almost brings a tear to your eye. Ah, it's so good, man. Why can't people do this shit anymore? Just make a good fucking game, chat. Just one good fucking game.
Bungie was still deep in financial trouble. They were not good at managing money. They were good at making games, and the impact of the millions lost on Myth 2's launch was finally starting to take its toll.
Bro, just make me a good game.
Following the reveal of the game, they began quietly searching for somebody to acquire them. They knew that Microsoft was preparing to launch a new console, so they reached out to Ed Freeze, head of Xbox. Freeze, completely desperate for talent and flagship titles,
so good,
jumped at the chance to be able to acquire them.
Because creativity's lost. Well, in a market right now where the only thing that sells is like indie devs and fucking rehashes, it's true though. Because only remakes and milkings exist now. It's fucking sad, but it's true.
The deal went through, and Microsoft made Halo the centerpiece of its new console.
That was smart.
Now, at the time, first-person shooters lived on PC. Games like Doom and Quake thrived on mouse and keyboard precision, and most people doubted whether or not first-person shooters could even work on console.
And you know what? This goes back to what we were saying. They did something special, and they brought Bungie's team brought like FPS to Mac. Now Bungie's team is bringing FPS to console. And then Bungie's team brought MMOs to console. Every time they did something good, they were doing something that nobody else had done in a way that was creative and inventive. And it was something that everybody wanted. They just didn't know it until it was in their hands. Halo's what made FPS today. It's so hard to really state the impact that Halo had.
Halo Combat Evolved ended up launching on the Xbox and it proved everybody wrong. Its tight controls redefined what shooters could be on the platform, setting the standard for how FPS games would feel on consoles even today. When Halo Bungie and Destiny, like that was what always made Destiny feel so good, right? Was just how good Destiny felt. What up, Crash? At least, I don't know, man. This game was an enigma. Its campaign and PvP.
No, absolutely. It was so far ahead of its time.
Anything like it before. Its LAN-enabled multiplayer just created this instant community around it. We'd hook up multiple Xbox consoles for 16-player matches. It just became the game that everybody wanted to get together to play. And it wasn't just about playing the game. It was about the shared memories that game brought with it. But this is also the moment where things took an unexpected turn. Because after the release...
Dude, those experiences and memories live with people forever. And that is what a lot of us are chasing every day when we play a new game or we try something. We're trying to get those experiences back because they were such amazing experiences and the industry is just lost in the sauce, and they do not provide these types of experiences that really give you those dopamine hits that the old games did.
Of Halo, and during the development of Halo 2,
You just can't get
Bungie's
it.
priorities began to shift, and I'd argue that this is the moment where everything changed for them, because remember,
Halo
Bungie was
2?
a Mac-first developer with a loyal audience
Oh, yeah.
that carried them through their early years. They would not be where they were without them. The original agreement they had
Still
for
are-
Halo was for that game to be
absolutely,
multi-platform, and Microsoft had already...
It was something. Like, the first time you played it, you were just like, holy fuck. Right? Like, you were like, this is actually something.
commissioned Gearbox to port the game to PC and Mac. But then Microsoft
What up,
and
Decay?
Xbox's marketing team, along with Bungie's own manager under Microsoft, Pete Parsons, canceled the ports, forcing the game to be exclusive. Now, I'm not saying that this betrayal of the PC and Mac fans was the sole reason for Bungie to go down the wrong path, but this is the moment where control started to slip, when making games stopped being about the players who got them there and started being about something else entirely, something that only got worse with the development of Halo 2.
And I mean, I get LD's point here, and it is very true. Like, this is the moment in like a very small shift in the direction of the company, in which case it was definitely about money and not about trying to provide the best game to the most gamers, is very true. Like what he said, there's not a lie. How guns worked in the games as well. Oh yeah, they were fucking crazy, dude. They cooked.
Bungie wanted to push
You cannot overstate the value that Bungie had in gaming.
Halo 2 further than anything that they had done before.
You can't
but the
do it.
project slipped into chaos. Deadlines started slipping. Microsoft's patience started to run dry, and executives were reportedly pressuring the developers to sleep in their own offices just to keep the machine moving. The same
I'm
group
sure.
of nerds that were once making games for themselves were now getting crushed under corporate schedules. Bungie
Yup.
asked for another year, but Microsoft said no. For Bungie, this wasn't just a scheduling issue, it was survival. Rushing Halo 2 risked undoing everything that they had
Absolutely.
already built, and the standoff between the two got
Absolutely.
so heated that Ed Freeze, one of Xbox's top leaders, quit the company in frustration. Bungie eventually ended up getting their delay, but they lost their
Good.
strongest ally, and with him, the last traces of the carefree studio that they used to be. And I think what's crazy is that despite
It
all of this,
sucks.
their talent was still undeniable. Halo 2 was more than
It
just
sucks
a
to
sequel.
hear
It was
it
a
all
cultural event. It sold
spelled
2.4
out.
million copies.
Because you can hear every little thing that chipped away that slowly destroyed the monolith that was Bungie.
In the first 24 hours. It
You
raked
can
in
hear it.
$125 million, becoming the fastest selling piece of media at the time. It was the moment that gaming fully entered into the mainstream, and beyond sales, Halo 2 revolutionized online multiplayer.
Oh, absolutely.
Xbox Live players could actually form clans and climb leaderboards
God.
and compete in a global community.
Dude, like literal like chills like watching this gameplay, because I remember doing this stuff.
It wasn't just a continuation of Halo's story, it defined
Like,
what
I just
online
loved
gaming
it
could be
so
for
much.
consoles, and it cemented Bungie as one of the most important studios in gaming history. But that's
Dude, like, those are the moments that I want when I play a game. I want to just feel something again, but it's just so fucked because you don't get those experiences in gaming right now. And it hurts because we all miss them. Dude, Halo created teabagging. They absolutely did. You quit D2, PC. The new CEO, they ruined that game. And it sucks because, like, we want it to be good. That's why 33 turned out so good. 33 turned out so good because they made a game for themselves and it delivered that experience. And that was what made that experience so good. For the 360 came out, dude, they're fucking crazy
came at a
numbers.
cost, because going big time, locking in with Microsoft, abandoning their old Mac audience, even if it wasn't their choice, it reshaped the studio. The Bungie that was once building games for themselves is now tied to something much bigger, and the weight of that partnership was starting to show. The development of Halo 2 was the moment where Bungie finally realized what they had signed up for. Microsoft now has one of the most important games in the industry, and there was no world in which they were going to let Bungie work on anything else. With
So to LD's point here, and I get what he's saying, but there's always going, especially back in this, because you have to remember the world in this time frame. And in this time frame, you couldn't be an indie studio and be big. So like they had an experience they wanted to deliver, but you have to give up part of yourself to be able to get the reach that you want. So it was one of those things where you were damned if you do and damned if you don't, and you had to do it if you wanted to continue, but it just continued to get worse from here.
every release, expectations grew even heavier, and as soon as Halo 2 had shipped, Bungie was pushed straight into Halo 3. Now, on the surface, the development of Halo 3 was going smoothly, but inside the studio, resentment
Yeah.
was building. Leadership
Was so
had already
good,
begun
you loved
whispering
it.
about escape,
I didn't play enough Reach, unfortunately.
and starting talks with Microsoft about going independent, knowing that they had been chained to Halo forever under Microsoft's oversight. And yet, under that pressure, they did it again. In 2007, Halo 3 launched to $170 million in sales.
Halo 3 was so good,
Halo 3
though.
was an enormous leap over Halo 2, powered by...
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Halo 3 was just something. Honestly, though, like, it's just Halo 3 was so good.
By the Xbox 360's hardware. Visually, it was unrecognizable compared to earlier games. Easily the best-looking shooter of the time. Bungie over-delivered on nearly every single front. Forge mode, a revolutionary tool that let us make our
Forge
own
mode
maps
was
and create our own
good.
content. Theater mode, where we could record, edit,
Forge mode
and
was so
share
good.
gameplay clips. Dedicated servers that gave multiplayer stability and consistency that we just never even saw on console. And
You played Halo
a
4
campaign that
most?
stretched even longer than whatever
Halo
they had
3
made
was
before,
probably my
delivering
most
some
played.
of the most cinematic, satisfying
Dude, Pete
experiences
Parson?
imaginable. But at the height,
It's hard to overstate exactly who all had a hand in making Bungie a bad company. But yeah, Pete's definitely one of the most hated figures right now. No doubt about
of
it.
their success, Bungie was still looking at the exit. Following Halo 3's release, they announced that they were going to be separating from Microsoft, citing a desire to have some creative freedom and return to their roots as an independent studio. Under the deal, Microsoft would retain rights to Halo, while Bungie would continue developing the franchise for a few more years before they fully parted ways. In that stretch, Bungie oversaw Halo Wars, they followed it up with Halo ODST, and finally, in 2010, Halo Reach marked both the studio's farewell to
go.
Halo and
Halo
the
3
end
was
of their
your
official
baby?
partnership
Yeah.
with Microsoft.
I loved
It was the
Halo
close
3.
of an era. Looking back on it now, it's crazy that despite all the chaos and the pressure that
Oh, Halo definitely helped bring a lot of people to multiplayer. It's hard to overstate like Halo and like modern, like Call of Duty and Halo and the impact that they had on the first-person shooter scene. Like between Halo and Call of Duty, you developed an entire genre of gaming.
Bungie was under, they never seemed to break. They had already
You think
secured
First
their
Ascendant will have
independence from
startup cutscenes
Microsoft. They
like
could have
Destiny
just
2?
coasted,
No,
quietly
probably
quit, or
not.
just phoned it in, but instead, every single release, every game they had seemed to just raise the bar even
Nothing will be as
higher.
big as Halo.
And while Halo 3 might be the most popular entry in the series, Reach was just something else entirely. It showed just how much Bungie had matured and
The next thing that'll be big will be some sort of VR fucking Sword Art Online. Until you have something that revolutionizes gaming as much as these games did, you're not going to have the same impact. Gears was popular, Gears was. But you're not going to have the same impact. So until like Sword Art Online comes online, you're basically just like spinning tires.
how their skills had developed over the years. And to this day, I do not think that there's been
Your
a better
kidhood,
FPS
dude.
story that I have played. Going back to
So
the beginning,
good, though,
delivering
isn't it,
Cortana
Connor?
to the Pillar of Autumn, watching the sacrifices of Noble Team unfold, it was devastating. It was
VR's
emotional,
unwearable,
it was
yeah.
unforgettable. Nobody expected Bungie to tell a story like that, and it left an impact that I think still
It's the only
defines
downside.
them for many
VR's
fans
just not
even
there
today.
yet.
For a lot of us, Reach wasn't just a farewell
Soon.
to Halo. It was the moment that we remember Bungie forever. I'll be honest with you guys, for some of you folks that watch this channel that are a little bit on the younger side, maybe you guys only know Bungie for Destiny. I'm sorry.
I'm
It's next to
sorry.
impossible for me to be able to explain
Like
just how
Lamau.
much their studio and their games meant to
It could be
gamers
like Hack
worldwide.
Sign, had great
It's
music
like
at
their
least.
existence
Maybe.
just made gaming better across the board. It rose the standard for everybody out
It
there.
really did,
Their
though.
storytelling was
Did Pete
peerless,
die
their
today? Not that
gameplay
I'm
was
aware of.
flawless, and as a result of that, I think it made the rest of the industry want to do better. They were a company that just kept raising the standard with every single game that they released. And I didn't realize this until I started researching for this video, but I think the reason why we saw such a golden age in the Xbox 360 era isn't just because of nostalgia, it's just because Halo was that fucking good.
Halo
It
was.
impossible to ignore. If you were a company that was making video games, you needed to be learning something off of what Bungie was doing, because if you weren't, you were failing.
I mean, he's
And,
telling the truth.
I mean, the advancements that Bungie had made just for first-person shooters on a console is just next level. I mean, they brought them to the console in the first place. They brought the entire genre to the console. It's like I said at the beginning
yeah.
of the video.
I mean, he's not
the
lying, though.
controls that you play on a controller today
Halo
are
was
some
just
variation
huge.
of Halo's controls. You cannot perfect perfection. These guys created a standard. Everybody else had to follow it.
Basically.
But those standards started to shift. The minute that these guys left Xbox was the minute that everything started to fall apart for them. Whether it was indecisiveness, whether it was the financial pressure of them going independent, maybe
That was a
it
lot of
also their
things.
changes in leadership, all of the issues that they had that started at the development of Halo and then on started to bear fruit. And the
Well, because like part of it is like some of the issues you had were offset by the fact of not having to worry about money and not having to worry about certain business decisions. But when you're your own company, now you're worried about everything. And every little decision becomes a big decision, and it's just going to make your life that much worse.
image and the reputation that Bungie had built for itself was going to fall apart. While Bungie was still working on Halo 3 ODST and Reach, they were also working in the background on a game that they had planned to launch once they had gone independent, codenamed Project Tiger, later revealed as Destiny. After
And it was called Tiger because of the Tiger engine that they work in, right?
cutting ties with Microsoft, Bungie then signed a 10-year publishing deal with Activision in 2010. Why did these guys think that was going to be a better
Why did you go from one to the other? Do you know why? Because of what I said 10 minutes earlier in the video, where I said you could not be an independent studio and be big back during this time frame. It's really easy to think about independent studios now, like using Unity, using like UE5, shipping games for pennies on the dollar with like just a handful of people. But back in the day, you couldn't do that. And you had to have somebody to help you out. So them like going from like getting in out of one bed and into another bed was just something that had to be done.
deal for them? And it
Right.
didn't take long for things to spiral out of control. In 2013, only a year
Tiger
before
Engine's held
launch,
together. Tiger Engine's not held together right at this point. It's fucking basically falling apart.
Bungie leadership scrapped the original campaign written by Joe Staten, the veteran who had helped shape some of Halo's most iconic narratives. Staten then left the studio shortly after, and the campaign was rebuilt from fragments, leaving Destiny's story incoherent at launch.
Incoherent is the best way to put it. Destiny's story was fucked at launch. And it's another one of those situations where the game was just had something about it which kept it from failing. But this type of thing happens to almost every live service game. And when you look at games like Anthem or a bunch of other things, those games failed for whatever reason. Destiny made it, right? You take a game that's fully done, you strip it, you redo it, you reuse all the assets, and you try to Frankenstein some story. The only thing that saved Destiny was Destiny. Like, was just how good it felt to play. For years in your eyes, Bungie could do nothing wrong, and I would support them in everything. The past few years, you had your eyes open. It was so easy to be a Bungie fanboy.
When Destiny launched in 2014, expectations were sky high, an MMO shooter coming from the studio that never misses. It felt like a dream, but in reality, it was a stumble that nobody ever saw coming. The gunplay was incredible, pure Bungie, but everything else around it was hollow. The story was weak, the content was thin, and the grind was absolutely relentless. It was a fun and frustrating experience at the same time, a game that felt great to play, but gave you nothing meaningful to do.
But the thing was, there was nothing else there. They did something that nobody else was doing, and they had zero competition, so they were able to literally trip on their dick every time they took a step and still succeed. Right? Because there was no competition, and that's not what you have in today's landscape. The new Tarkov that nobody wants, yeah. That's reminded you about the whole like Peter Dinklage recasting thing. Like, that was so bad.
Bungie's support really didn't help the situation either. Content droughts dragged on, balance patches absolutely gutted some of the most popular weapons in the game, and over time it just became less fun to play. Expansions like the Dark Below and House of Wolves added scraps that felt more like content from launch, while the Taken King finally delivered the overhaul that players wanted all along, but only behind another paywall. By then, the sense was already clear. Destiny had not launched unfinished by accident. Bungie was selling back the missing pieces later.
I don't like LD's use of paywall here. I don't like the idea of paywall here. I know some people might disagree with me. I don't think it was paywalled. I think it was based and I don't want to spend too much time talking about this because this video is already long as fuck. But the Destiny team said that they mirrored this off of MMOs like World of Warcraft and the World of Warcraft model. So it is very standard to have expansions delivered like once a year or once a quarter that you have to pay for. And I don't think that there was ever a problem in paying for content. I think there was some sort of a feel of paying too much money for not enough content. And that's what happened with the first two DLCs. But I don't think like the Taken King and some of that stuff, I don't think it was really seen to be that bad of a thing at the time. Because you did that in other MMOs. Like if you were playing World of Warcraft, you were playing fucking EverQuest. Like it wasn't anything to pay for an expansion, and you didn't have to pay a monthly sub. So it was an MMO on a first person, like it was an MMO on a console. So there was a give and a take, right? That's okay. But WoW eventually circled, allowing people to play their expansions. You still can't play older D2 seasons. That's talking about Destiny 2 and not Destiny 1, Rat. And I don't disagree with you. And there's a whole conversation about them like pulling content, like vaulting content and a bunch of shit that just should never have happened. But in the original launch of Destiny, I don't think it was that big of a deal. You know what I mean?
Oh, I remember being so mad about this. The Dark Below was an absolute ripoff. Crota's End was a cool raid, but that expansion was just like one strike, a couple story missions, and a couple PvP maps. It all felt like cut content that should have been there since day one. Same thing goes for House of Wolves. By the time
the first two expansions were bad.
That was actually worth it. It finally made the game feel like the Destiny that was always pitched to us. But then Bungie comes in and puts in the Eververse store, bringing in microtransactions.
The Diablo 2 loot model made you quit D2. Yeah, I like the seasonal loot model, a bunch of stuff. People just don't like it.
Into a fully priced game with expansions. And that was like somebody walking into a 5-star restaurant and taking a shit on the table that you're eating at. You can ignore it, but you can still smell it. Now, I'll say this, maybe it's speculation, but I do not think that timing was a coincidence. This had Activision's fingerprints all over it.
Oh, it definitely was Activision.
Well. Remember, Parsons was Bungie's manager under Microsoft.
It was definitely Activision trying to find every way they could to monetize it. Like, absolutely.
Leaving Xbox, he came back
to
Bungie
there's no two ways
to be
about
their head
it.
of marketing, and not long after the Eververse store appeared, he was named CEO of the company. From that point forward, the influence of Activision and Parsons' leadership steered Bungie in a direction that would slowly but decisively erode everything that studio once stood for.
Absolutely.
I think it's worth pointing out just how fast their priorities had flipped. Think about where we started. This is a company that valued their independence, that wanted to make the games that they wanted to play, that shared the perspective of their audience. Because
bro, his cat is laying on top of his tower. We talked about it earlier. I love cats. I would have such a huge issue with that and getting cat hair in my tower that I would be freaking the fuck out. And I absolutely love cats. But like a cat on my computer desk laying on top of like my computer when it's not running, and cat hair and cat dander falling through the fans and into my
because they were their audience. But the minute that they
one's
broke free of
triggering,
Microsoft,
chat.
they immediately and just went and handed that over
I
to
couldn't do it.
Activision. For what? Money. Suddenly their games were rushed, stories were scrapped. What was sold to us was entirely unfinished.
And sitting there the whole video, I just noticed
instead
it.
of fixing it, these guys are selling it
filters.
back to us as
Possible.
DLC. At this point, they have completely shed the loyalty that they once felt for the audiences
Makes
that
sense, though,
built them
Urdu.
to what they were at the time. And that's not the Bungie
At least
that
I've heard
anybody
from others.
recognized. All it took was one game in 4 years for them to become that. And then came the microtransactions. What happened to we are our players? It's always funny when I hear that from developers where they say that they share our perspective. How many developers pay for microtransactions in their own games? I'd really like to know. Actually, you don't need to tell me because I already know. As somebody that's been sponsored by video games in the past, I know that to them, it's just a button press on the back end. They don't know what it's like. It's money to us. To them, it's nothing. And that's the moment that Bungie lost perspective of their players. They stopped being us.
I mean, I don't worry too much about that. I mean, microtransactions. Yeah, I've got a whole gripe I can pitch with microtransactions, but at the end of the day, players dictate if the company's going to do it. Because if players ended up stopping buying it, then companies would stop selling it, right? Like it's like bitching about drugs, but then drug addicts going out and buying drugs. Like, are the drugs the problem? Absolutely. Should we get rid of the drugs? For sure. But honestly, until people stop buying the fucking drugs, what are you going to do?
And they started preying on us. When Destiny 2 launched in 2017, it was clear that Bungie had learned from at least some of their mistakes. Cutting support from the first game so quickly was frustrating for a lot of players, but the sequel was a massive improvement. The story
most of us stopped
much
playing
more
Destiny.
coherent,
Yeah,
the
a lot
campaign
of us
was
did.
cinematic. The launch was packed with content. There was more planets, better boss fights, and more weapons. It wasn't perfect, but it was far sharper in every way, and it let players feel genuinely optimistic about the future. But that optimism would be wasted. Because not long after launch, players discovered that Bungie was secretly throttling XP gains to slow down how quickly players could earn Eververse rewards.
I completely forgot about that. Stop blaming the player base. I'm just a big fan of laying blame where it goes, right, Sonic? Like, I think that if the players are to blame, you should lay blame on the players, and if the company's to blame, you should lay blame on the company. I think that it's perfectly fair to lay blame. Like, I know you're memeing, but I think it's perfectly fair to lay blame wherever the blame goes, right? Microtransactions didn't bother you. It's the cosmetics. At least they didn't go pay to win for sure. I think that there should always be a level of like cosmetics that are earnable and cosmetics that are payable. In an ideal world, there would be no buyable cosmetics and you would just earn them all in the game like old MMOs and shit. But that's never going to happen again. I'm only paying for it. for the story, and that's it now. No, I don't disagree with you. You agree? Yeah, I think most people do, honestly. The Call of Duty Black Ops 2 microtransactions changed the business forever. They made like 10x more than game sales. Yeah. I mean, honestly, once people saw that there was money to be made doing this shit, then everybody did it. Like, I'm not going to say Halo was the first one to do it, or not Halo, but Bungie or fucking Activision or whoever. But as soon as one company saw they could do it, they were going to push it across the industry.
To unlock free loot boxes containing cosmetic items, but in practice, Bungie had built a system deliberately limiting how often players could earn those rewards without paying. Now, this was just the start, because while the game felt content-rich at the start, the cracks started to show pretty quickly. Endgame progression was incredibly shallow, but that was
this is new game content. I was like fucking like my brain just like broke, because I thought this. I literally, from looking at this, was like, oh, this is like old like beta footage or whatever, or like old footage, and then I just realized this is like from some of the newer expansions, and then my brain was like, man, I thought Destiny looked good. Like, Destiny just looks like, this just looks dated. Oh, is it 2 years ago? Okay.
3 months later,
I was like,
Bungie
it just looks dated.
Rolled out a $20 DLC and offered almost nothing. A single story mission, a strike, and a few
Curse of Osiris
It was the same
bad.
cynical playbook that they had for Destiny 1's early expansions, and it confirmed
it was
what
definitely
players
bad.
were already starting to believe, that Bungie was not the beloved
That's the engine
studio
from
that they
10
once
years
were.
ago? No, it's
they were
true.
a greedy one. By 2019, Bungie had shifted Destiny 2 to a free-to-play model, at least in name. In reality, multiple expansions had already been out, so the cost of the full experience of the game was well over $80 at the time. Players could access a base layer of content, but most weapons, raids, and campaigns were locked behind paywalls. Free-to-play was nothing more than a marketing label, and the worst part about all that paid content is that it wasn't even yours. In 2020, with the launch of Beyond Light, Bungie vaulted nearly half of Destiny 2's content. Expansions players had paid for entire...
Yep, vaulting content plus sunsetting was like, vaulting content and sunsetting were two nails in a coffin that were completely irreversible. And once those were done, you lost large parts of your player base that you would never ever get back. I know people that loved the game, and the first time sunsetting happened, they never came back. And I know people that the first time vaulting happened, they never came back.
Campaigns like the Red War, Curse of Osiris, and Warmind gone.
When
Whole
Sony takes
planets were
over,
deleted, exotic quests,
no, I
weapons,
agree,
and
Connor.
Activities
When
vanished,
Sony
all in the
takes
name of
over, there will be a
streamlining
Destiny
the
3.
experience. Bungie had claimed that it was necessary for technical reasons.
You were that way? I think a lot of people were, Panda. One of those two things killed a lot of the player base. Doesn't help at some point. They reworked some of this engine around the screenshot. Yeah, and they broke so much in the lighting. Yeah.
Reduce new systems and reduce file size, but
you'll
no
only return to Destiny 3 years after
It
sunsetting.
devalued years of
Jesus,
support,
man.
erased content people had purchased, and
They kind of undid sunsetting, right?
it made it feel like Bungie was forcing players forward into new expansions, whether they liked it or not. Now, you think after vaulting half of the game, Bungie would try to repair their relationship with their players, but instead of that, they just doubled down. The Witch Queen expansion was absolutely brilliant. God, I love that expansion.
Did they
so much.
fully
But
undo it?
underneath
Okay.
it came $20 paywall dungeons and expansion prices that crept up past the cost of a brand new game.
Just
In
to do it
2023,
again?
After Sony bought them, I thought that they would actually improve. I think a lot of people thought that they would, but things only got worse.
Man, that's
Seasons
so
got locked
bad.
behind $10 to $15 paywalls, obfuscated.
Dude, the dungeon keys were like the biggest L to me. Honestly, the dungeon keys were like one of the biggest L's to me. I know there are like tons of L's in the history, but those really triggered me. Like, I was okay with sunsetting. You gave me good reasons. Like, I was okay with the idea of like vaulting content for storage reasons. All that made sense. But as soon as it was like, hey, we're gonna take content that we used to give you guys for free and charge you even more for it, I was like, dude, I'm fucked. This is dumb. Yeah, you could lie to me about the other shit, and I was okay with it. But the dungeons hitting keys, I was like, this is a waste.
Through silver bundles that were always forcing you to overpay for them, followed by paywalled exotics.
They sunset some weapons later the year. They unset them. Yeah, they did dumb
while
shit.
locking more cosmetics away. And through all of this, Bungie still had the nerve to market Destiny as a free-to-play game when it
So
clearly
bad.
isn't. The most frustrating part of all of this is that despite all of its flaws, Destiny 2 can have some incredibly high points. That's why people keep coming back to it. Expansions like Lightfall in 2023 pushed the game over 300,000 concurrent players on Steam, and Episode 1 Echoes sparked a similar surge. The game can be amazing when it delivers.
Dude, when Destiny's good, it's great. When Destiny's bad, it's fucking horrible.
Gunplay is unmatched. The raids are some of the best in the industry, and that's
Feels
why
so
people
bad.
care enough to be angry in the first place. But the
Better off
erratic
with a
quality
subscription.
combined with Bungie's obsession with squeezing their players for all their work
I'm willing to pay a subscription fee for a game, but it needs to be good.
has left this game feeling hollow. That's why the game
I'm not
now
doing it
sits at
for
25
I'm not doing a subscription model just for you to pad your profits. If you want me to do a subscription model, your game better be fucking good. Like actually good. And we haven't seen a good game that has a subscription model since fucking old MMOs.
1,000 concurrent players on Steam right now. It's lowest ever. And honestly, who could blame anybody for leaving? Destiny 2 costs over $400.
That's why you quit?
If you want
Yeah.
access to the full game, it's locking content behind expansions that can vanish at any time while still
If it's not good
asking
like
for
14,
money
you're not touching
at
it.
every
Yeah.
turn.
It has to be
This
good.
is not the Bungie that made Halo. That's obvious now. Most of the original staff is gone, lost to layoffs, creative differences, scandals, or burnout, or whatever else. And what's left is shifted its perspective so far from we are our players.
You can
that the
play for
quality
free.
has
You can
suffered and the
subscribe
trust
for
is
some
gone.
have like premium
Bungie was once
content.
one of the most renowned studios in the
I'm willing to do anything if it's a good game. Like I'm willing to pay for a good game, but I'm losing the will to pay money for bad games. Right? Hopefully that makes sense. I know a lot of you guys are the same way. I'm willing to pay a game for a good I'm willing to pay a developer for a good game. I'm actually willing to spend a shitload of money to reward developers for giving me a good experience, but I am just so tired and burnt out of paying a shitload of money for a bad game and then being Stockholm syndrome into playing it even though I'm not enjoying it because I have copium thinking the game is going to get better next expansion. Like I'm just so tired of doing that.
world. Now nobody gives them the benefit of the doubt.
And we've
they've
all been
proven
there.
time and time again.
We're all there at
they
this
do
point.
not
Yeah, I
deserve
think
it.
we are.
They've abandoned their principles that they were founded on to the point where their own leadership openly
It
dismisses
sucks.
the idea of delivering value to their players. At GDC 2020,
Beware of over delivering. Shut the fuck up.
Bungie's then general manager, now CEO Justin Truman, gave a presentation on running a live service game where he literally
You're
argued
creating
that
patterns.
over-delivering to your players is a bad thing.
Dude, hoping for the next expansion is basically early access hopium, 100%, and we all fall victim to it. We can't say that we don't. We all do.
He said, if we release an expansion with 2 raids, the next year folks are going to be upset if there's only 1 raid. We've hurt the station by making a rogue decision in 1 train. But at the same time, and this is why the lesson is so painful, so much of quality and delight in our craft comes from over-delivery, right?
The same person this is the new CEO. They're fucked, dude. They're cooked. If this is their current CEO, they're fucking cooked. They're cooked. Turn it over to Sony and let fucking Sony run Destiny 3. They are fucking cooked. WoW was a great MMO to play until Chris, and then it all went to shit. But it goes back to what we were saying earlier in the video, old man, which is the original studios that made these games made games for themselves to play, and in doing so made a good game. But then eventually the game gets turned over to people who just want to make money, and they're trying to find the best way to make money. And then that is when these games fall off. And then they're just preying on people's nostalgia to stay around.
From giving folks stuff beyond what they expected. We
Right?
still want that.
I mean,
We
I
still
think we
want
can
the
all agree on
surprise and
that.
delight
And it's easy to agree on it because there's patterns of it happening over and over again.
and sometimes overwhelm our players, but we need to be mindful of the patterns and the implied future commitments we've set for ourselves each time. Games media rushed in to defend Bungie at the time, claiming that players just didn't understand the full context of the conversation. But let's be real, that's a bullshit mentality. It does not benefit your customers in any way. You should be setting
Hate the over delivery statement. It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. It's absolute bullshit.
clear goals and delivering on them. Simple
We
as
see it
that. How
coming. We all do,
disorganized, how
though.
inept is your leadership if you have to justify not creating patterns of quality?
Pretty sure Destiny's only around for netties at this point, and maybe it is. Like maybe Destiny 3's never coming, and maybe they're just going to use it for a gotcha game, and maybe that's what it is, Rat. Like, unfortunately, that might be the world we live in. But I think it's really hard to take an IP as iconic as Destiny and relegate it to a gotcha game and just let it die, because I think you're just throwing.
If you're afraid of actually setting positive expectations,
I think
that's
you're
not a
just fucking
strategy,
throwing.
It's cowardice. And that leadership,
Destiny
I think,
Rising's
is shown
pretty
through
fun. I've actually heard Destiny Rising is pretty entertaining and enjoyable to the point that I've almost put it on my PC.
bright as day when they revealed Marathon earlier this year, a hero-based extraction shooter.
They called Forsaken expansion over delivery. Story was all right. They even had to shoot themselves in the foot by revealing like Cade's death right before launch. Yeah, that was rough, dude. That's how D2 will die as a gotcha, guys. I hope it doesn't, but we all know it could. They were working on D3, but forced to scrap it for D2. No, I remember them talking about that. I mean, they definitely said that it happened, right? Destiny Rising is only fun if you've never played a gotcha game seriously before. I mean, I think it's like a bridge between like Destiny gamers and gotcha, right? It's fun to play while waiting for cats. I can honestly see that, though.
I think you could be any more on the nose when it comes to trend chasing, but the reveal landed with a thud, uninspired, unwanted, instantly forgettable. Then came the controversy when fans discovered that
I thought it was mobile app only. Go to their website, Ecto, and then they should have a thing on their website that tells you to download, like, it's called like Moo Moo or some shit. But basically, it's an emulator that lets you play it on your system.
Bungie had copied an indie artist's work for their
It's okay,
art deck,
Fifth Fleet. I appreciate you, man.
On a former employee, they got swept up.
They made a Destiny
layoffs,
gotcha game.
True or not, intentional
Destiny
or not,
Rising.
it doesn't really matter. It only underscores just how disorganized and hollow this studio has become. And I'll be honest,
it's not BlueStacks. It's something else, though. You can use BlueStacks. You tried it on your iPad, but it didn't catch you. It might not be your thing, right? Like, I haven't picked it up yet. I've got other games on my radar. It won't last long. I'm sure it won't.
with you, I played the Marathon pre-alpha, and it was the first time in all of my research that I actually felt like I was going to work. No soul, no spark. It was just an empty grind. That
Dude,
just
the
made
game
it
looked like
painfully
shit.
clear that Bungie has not only sold away their principles, but their talent. The only
You cannot, chat, you cannot in any world, you cannot look at this and tell me this is an award-winning game and this game is going to revolutionize the market and we should definitely put all of our eggs in the basket on this game. Everything about this game, from looking at it, looked fucking terrible. It looked sanitized. It looked Karenified. There was nothing good about this game. I had no desire to play this game. Why, if you were Bungie, would you go from making Destiny to Sanitary Tarkov? It was like fucking Concord level shit, like times 100 for fucking retards. It was such a bad idea. Sorry that I like had to pause the video for that, but there was no world in which you could look at this and go, yeah, this is it, chat. Like, this is it, guys. Everybody pat themselves on the back. We're going to sell tons of copies. Everybody's going to love it. There was no fucking world. This is what happens when you put a bunch of yes men around and they stand around and circle jerk each other. This is what happens when you put a bunch of pussies in one room and nobody's willing to speak up and go, you know what? No, this is a bad idea. No, this is what happens. This Concord, this is what happens. There's a time to have people agree with you in business, and there's a time to have people that will tell you that you're making a bad decision. This game was bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, and it almost shipped. This game almost shipped.
only thing that's left is a studio that is creatively bankrupt and it's being run by management that has no idea what they're doing. And that's why Marathon
You did not make this game for gamers. I'll just put it that way.
is delayed indefinitely.
The head
Sony
person
now
that worked
seems
on the
to
game
write it on
hates
the wall,
guns.
They've wasted their
Then you're in the wrong fucking you're in the wrong fucking business. You know what I mean? It was meant to come out this month, and I'm glad it got shelved. This game should just disappear like Concord.
$3.6 billion investment with Destiny 2.
It looked like the original trailers. It might have been decent,
They've
but
begun stripping away Bungie's autonomy, preparing to fold the studio fully into
it just looks like
PlayStation,
shit,
likely
man.
Dissolving it entirely. There's a really good chance that Bungie just won't.
I got
exist
heated,
after
chat.
this.
I got heated.
Bungie's story
It
is
just looks
tragic
so
because
bad.
It didn't have to be this way. They weren't some no-name.
Do I
studio
have a
that wanted
favorite
the success.
game?
They were
I don't have a lot of favorites, and there's no game that really, like, you know what I mean? Like, has me by the balls right now. I enjoy First Descendant, but it's not a game that I go to bed and I dream about getting up and playing. I haven't had a game that I logged off and went and sat on the couch and was like, nah, fuck it, like 20 more minutes, and ran into my room to play it in years. It has been so long since I had a game that as soon as I logged off, all I did was think about playing it. It's been years.
That once set a standard For the entire
couldn't tell
industry,
you the
they
last
took
game.
shooters off of the PC and brought them to console. They created moments, memories.
Otherwise, they still would have
communities that
shipped.
shaped an entire generation of players, and then they just sold it all away.
I'm not gonna. I think the stolen art thing was an issue, but I think the stolen art thing was like a problem. But if the whole game didn't suck, then the stolen art thing would have just been like brushed under the rug. I don't think the stolen art thing was like what killed Marathon. I think that fucking Marathon killed Marathon, and the stolen art thing was just another problem.
Piece by piece, a studio that wasn't.
They stole the wrong art, basically. Dude, if you're gonna steal art, at least steal something cool, right?
That looked at its players as wallets to be drained. They traded their identity for
at least steal good art.
For trends.
I'm not saying the person had bad art, and that art would have probably been good in like a different position or in a different game. But like the whole art style of Marathon was bad, and it's not that person's art. That person's a great artist, but just what was done with the art made it bad, right? You can take really good art and turn it into something really bad, and that's what happened.
Trust for
I'm not like shitting on the artist before people are like, dude, Judge is a cunt. Like, that's not what happened.
The community is fractured. Their flagship game is bleeding players. Their next project is a punchline, and the company itself is just now being stripped for parts.
We're sucking up so much time. What kind of game is it?
Because of bad luck, they're collapsing because they abandoned the very philosophy that made them great. The people who once played their own games, who built for themselves and invited us along for the ride, are gone. What's left is a company that...
I agree with him. If you have people here that aren't making games for gamers and they're making games for profit, your games are going to suck. And that is what is happening in gaming in Western studios over and over and over again. And it's even happening in Eastern games. All gaming right now is like focused around maximizing profits and not making games for gamers. And then you'll get like a couple games that come out that are for gamers and they do exceedingly well and everything else just sucks. Which game we talking at? We're just talking about Destiny we're just talking about Bungie and Destiny in general. What do I think about the new? I think they're okay. There's nothing in there that I really like. Lady, what about you guys? Expedition 33. There's like a couple games that have done really well, but they were built for gamers.
Doesn't even understand its audience anymore. A company who forgot what it was. And in this industry, when you lose that, you don't just fall, you get buried. I don't think that Marathon stands a chance. I don't see a world where that happens. Not without a vast reimagining. I'm talking about an almost entirely different game, which
I wouldn't say almost. Marathon needs to be reworked from the ground up. If you want to do it, Marathon, the wholesale needs to be redone.
Requires a lot more time and a lot more
money.
This
wasn't the first time. No, they've stolen our
Sony's going to be willing to give to them. I think that Sony's looking at this and saying this is a company that's lost its trust, that's lost its talent, that's lost its organization. And they're likely regretting that $3.6 billion investment or saying to themselves, let's just salvage whatever we can that still works. I'm deeply saddened to make a video like this. I would have never thought that this is where Bungie would end up.
Bro, how did I make this a 1 hour fucking video?
I've talked about this in other videos in the past, but
how did I do
Halo
it,
was
chat?
Largely the game that made me a gamer. Like, sure, I played games when I was younger, but at the same time, I never had games that I was like committed to. Games that became a part of my identity or part of my personality or that led to me making a lot of other friends and memories and things like that. And I mean, they drove me to want to make games of my own. I mean, I dropped out. I'm just not really built for programming, to be honest with you. But either way, that's still what their games did. Their games inspired others to do other things.
Absolutely. And that doesn't fucking exist anymore.
To do great things or try to do great things.
Should I gab less, old man?
Only inspire criticism. Hate.
Get those up. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me for it.
I really am of the mind that money corrupts all. And that the more that you're tempted by the ring, the more focus you lose. And the more focus you lose, everything starts to suffer as a result of it. I have no problem with these companies wanting to make money. I don't even have a problem with companies wanting to have microtransactions in their game. I really don't.
Absolutely.
The problem
I agree with him.
Is that when that gets in the way of the quality of the experience and actually making something for the audience that you're putting it out there for.
Absolutely.
And
it's the same thing with like gooning in First Descendant. I don't have a problem with gooning. I don't have a problem with fan service. I don't have a problem with you putting it in the game. But if that is the thing that you're doing instead of making the game better, I have a huge problem with it. And so I agree with LD and what he just said in all gaming. So like, and the best example I can do is First Descendant. Like, I don't have a problem with you doing all of these things. Just make me a good game, and then you can do whatever the fuck you want to sell it. Like, you can make as much fucking money off of it as you want. Just make it a good game.
When your greed is getting to the point where it's interfering with the process, with the quality, with the experience that you're delivering, you've already lost your company.
That's crazy, right?
At least that's how it works in my eyes. I don't know if becoming a part of PlayStation is going to help them. Maybe it will. I mean, PlayStation's internal studios do relatively well for the most part, so maybe that ends up being a boon to them.
Maybe
it ends up working out. Maybe that's what they need, is just stronger leadership and more oversight. I mean, if you think about it, they were at their peak when they had Microsoft over them. So
I hate to say it, but it's true, right? We got Axion, FY. Dude, I appreciate you, mate.
I mean, maybe this is exactly what they need. Maybe independence was the last thing that Bungie needed.
Honestly, sometimes people don't do well when left to their own devices, and it might have been what happened here.
Who knows? Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video.
Warframe did a good job.
I had a lot to say. I didn't want to leave out any context. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too long. If you guys did enjoy the video, share the video. Like the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, catch me live on Fridays, and
guys, hopefully you enjoyed. Let me do the old Asman. Let me do the old Asman here. If you guys, here's the video that we just watched. So if you guys enjoyed Legendary Drops and you want to see this content straight for yourself, then definitely go ahead and click that link. You can go right to the video. You can give him a like, give him a sub if you haven't already done it. We're gonna go ahead and like the video. So if you guys haven't done that, definitely do it. I think he did a good job, and I think it was a really good expose and a good look at sort of what happened to Bungie and Destiny. I hate to see that it happened, but hopefully some other studios can learn from it, and hopefully gaming starts to heal, because right now I feel like we're in the best time and the worst time in gaming. There are more games coming out than ever. More games have access to the best assets in the world. Games are being churned out globally, and there's an insane amount of competition. But the soul in gaming seems to have died in the process. So now all we're seeing is a bunch of high quality shit that is just there to take your money. And it feels bad because there's such opportunity there that I feel like we should be living in the golden age of gaming, where every game is a banger and you don't know what game to play and you just feel overwhelmed, and that's not what's happening.